What to do if our data is sorted? Let's say we have a data. If it's sorted, then we can actually start at the middle and work towards the beginning or the end of the array, depending on where the item is located. And if this happens, we can use something called binary search. Binary search is actually a divide and conquer algorithm where each step it halves the number of items to search through. So let's say we consider an example. This is the actual array that we have, and we want to actually search for element called 100, and we see that it is actually sorted. Then in binary search, what we do is we actually find the midpoint and try to see the actual number that we are comparing. Is it greater or less than the value at the midpoint? And since the 100 is actually greater than 50, so it must be on the second half. So in binary search, what we do is we actually make a new sub array that we want to search through. And so our new sub array would be this. So we only took the second half of the array, and then the new min would be this, the max would be whatever this index is, and then the midpoint would be min plus max divided by 2, which is 100. And in this case, we don't have to divide any longer because we actually found our actual value is a midpoint, mid value actually. So this way, we, instead of going through each number and searching, we actually divide and conquer. So that's the approach we took. So if we were to divide and conquer, the time complexity would be O log n time, because we actually, and then this actually assumes that we had a sorted algorithm. And if we were to do a comparable with linear search, it would be just O of n time, because we are iterating through each element. Now we know what binary search is and how it works. Let's take an example of how to do that in actual VS Code. Alright, in my VS Code right here, I already have the array that we want to check for, that we had an example. And actually, let's write the code. So I want to create a new function called static, and then we want to give a boolean type, and it does a binary search. And then in here, I want to pass in an array of input array in integer type, and then the item that we want to search for, right? We want to pass in that. And the first step is actually to create the indices for min and max, and it helps in bucketing the array that we want to search for. So let's say the min equals 0, and this is actually, we are considering the indices, right? And then the max is the whatever the array, that length minus 1. So we have the min and then max. Now we will actually want to continue the search until the min is greater than or equal to max. So what we do is we do some sort of while function while min is less than or equal to max, and then what we want to do is we want to actually, by default, we want to return false if we didn't find any item in this loop. So let's do false, and in this while loop, we'll create a midpoint, and that can be calculated by using the min and the max divided by 2. So we'll say int mid equals min plus max, and then we can just do divide by 2. So now then what we'll do is we'll check if the item what we are checking matches to the value at the midpoint. So that means if the item is double equals to input array and then the mid, because that's what we are checking for. If it matches, then we just return true, right? And otherwise, if it doesn't matches, then we need to search either in the subarray, and that would be the later half or the lower half of the subarray. So what we can do is, if our item is less than the item at the midpoint, then we can search at the front half. And to do that, what we can do is we can do else if, let's say the item is less than the value at the mid, then what we do is we can set, now the max would be mid minus 1, and I'll give you an example here in a second. So if I were to give you an example, let's say the item that we are searching for is 30, right? So what we did in the example was we started from the midpoint and we checked to see is 30 greater than the value at the midpoint, and we see that definitely it is not. So what we need to do is we need to create the subarray, and in doing so, our max, because if we were to see 30, right, the item, the new max would be whatever the value at midpoint minus 1, right? And let's say if it's greater, then the same thing, the new min would be whatever the value whatever the mid plus 1, right? So that's what we are doing right here when we are doing the code. Okay, now if I were to go back to the code, we already have it. We define the mid, and then let's say we do the else, and this is when the item is actually greater than the item at the midpoint, then we search at the back half of the subarray, and then we do min equals the mid plus 1. So this is basically setting the indices for the min and max. Okay, let me see, I think I'm getting some sort of error in here. Okay, I think the issue was just else if was joined and I had written the statement. So yeah, this is how we would actually do for this. Let me see what else it is asking. There's something wrong with this. Okay, no. So now if we were to check for the item that we want to check, we can pass in console right line, and then I can pass in the binary search, and then the array that I want to pass is and then the item is we said 100, right? And then let's see, and if I were to run this code, and you see that actually it tells me that it's true. Let's say we were to search for another item which is not in here, and then let's say I run this code again, and it does give me false. To do the same thing in Csharp, what I can do is array dot, this is a built-in function, and I can pass in this array and then the item that we want to search. So it's that simple, but still we want to know what's going on underneath the hood to understand how the binary search works, and you definitely would need to know how this implementation works. Hopefully this makes sense to you, and keep watching more videos. I'll be making more content related to it, so yeah, hit that subscribe button, like, share, and then yeah, I'll see you in the next video.